Uh, Man, I imagine
What
it's hard to make those decisions in this weather too, because
That's interesting. I think it takes into account weather.
oh, does
what
it?
app is
Still,
this?
yeah. Huh?
What app is this?
I'm using the fourth down decision bot by Ben Baldwin.
Oh yeah, the one on
Oh,
Twitter.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's always
He's
fun to listen to the conversations around that too, because everybody like doesn't understand math and people get really insane when you start
Oh,
talking
it's
about it.
hilarious. But I would have expected a 4th and 2 on the 23-yard line. It'd be
Yeah,
combination, win
this weather
I
to
would.
probability,
be go
success
for it.
probability.
This is the Experience Podcast with me and someone else.
Yo,
What's up?
Jason and Anuj are back. This week we are covering the moratorium that is Georgia Tech football. For reference, since Jeff Collins arrived, they have gone 3-9, 3-7, and 3-9.
Oof. Yeah, that.
Uh,
now we'll see what happens
Col-
next.
Collins has now fired a third of his staff. Well, really, I mean, half the staff is changing jobs. Let's just say it like that. Which I think I mentioned this. It was probably off. It might have been on air. I guess a couple weeks ago now. Like, rarely does a head coach get rid of half his staff and it works out. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
it
usually,
seems.
usually it's the head coach's fault. And like, I understand. I think it was Noah that was saying like, well, he had to get rid of those players. Like, I or those coaches. Like, I get it. It's probably a Stansbury and whatever else thing. But like, still, doesn't look good on Collins. That's like
Not really. Not at all.
when you remove the offensive and defensive coordinator. Because Thacker is staying on. Andrew Thacker, last year's defensive coordinator, I think also linebackers coach, right? He's staying on,
Yeah,
but he's presumably moving to a different role. I saw some rumor that Collins is taking over as defensive coordinator, which, I mean, given what I just said earlier, 5 seconds ago, doesn't seem like a good idea. But
normally I'd be okay with that, but given the way these seasons have gone, I gotta say, I'm genuinely worried that Coach Collins is or has gone down the Dan Quinn trajectory.
I was about to say this. It's very Dan Quinn thing. Like, oh, Collins is taking over play calling now. Like, oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, I honestly don't know how much worse it could get, especially on defense. I was looking up some numbers prior to this, and there's one stat I found just astonishing, really. We apparently surrendered 0.47 expected points added per play on defense,
I was just about to mention that
Oh
one. Yeah,
boy.
actually, I have it as
which,
point. I was at 0.41 from passing alone.
oh God, which is
Yeah, our
for
secondary.
reference, that is like an elite quarterback production on an
That's
individual game basis.
well, I'll give it to you. Aaron Rodgers last year when he won MVP in the NFL, by the way, was at
What?
0.36. So Georgia
What?
Tech's defense turned other teams into better than an MVP quarterback in the NFL.
Yet somehow we shut down DJ Uyunglele and Sam Howell. Somehow.
I mean, that's included in the variance, right? Like,
Oh, it is.
I don't
Without
have
them,
the
it looks
numbers.
worse.
I don't have the numbers on those games, but they did do a good job against Howell. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is like,
in that one it was really just because that was one of the games I actually like paid attention to as much as I could. You know, it was like in the bends and everything, and it was like Sam Howell just stood there in the pocket and took sacks. Like he had like no pocket presence that game, just shuffled around awkwardly. Like there was a couple checkdowns open or whatever, and he's like looking for the home run shot, and he would just get swallowed up. So probably
yeah, you were
that game
saying,
alone was probably not so great. It probably tanked his draft stock a lot.
The whole
yeah, so
season
who's the
did.
number one quarterback now? Is it going to be, I don't know, Kenny Pickett
Ooh,
maybe?
No, I don't think Pickett.
Is Pickett even draft eligible this year?
that's
He
yeah,
is.
yeah, he is.
Pickett is super draft eligible.
It's
His
hard
year.
because like the quarterbacks like there's what was it, that guy named Malik Willis out of was it Liberty, I think.
Yeah.
He's like the
Yeah.
tools prospect of this quarterback, like the Josh Allen quarterback,
It's
right?
like the Trey Lance almost. I
Or the
think.
Trey Lance, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a guy who like needs some finishing polishing up in the NFL really before he kind of starts. But then there's like Kenny Pickett. There's that guy named Matt Corral, I think, out of Ole Miss.
He beat
There's a-
He beat Bama, or was that? No, wait, that was somebody else.
they beat him last year, I think, if I remember that correctly. But
Texas
no.
A&M
That
beat
was
Bama this year.
didn't they go undefeated last year? I don't remember. I know they have played Bama pretty close one of these years, and they just kind of chucked it up against Bama one of those years. I think that might have been last year. I think they kept it close or something, but yeah. So yeah, it's wide open for whoever the first quarterback is going to be off the board. Could be a number of things, and I think this is, it's going to be, there's always these consensus draft boards and everything about who's and who's going to be the best quarterback prospect. My favorite was like 2017, where people thought Mitch Trubisky was going to be the best quarterback. That was
It could still happen. It could still
which
happen.
yeah, it could could take over, could go to like the Saints or something next year and be good.
Or the Lions. They need a
Oh
quarterback.
dear God.
I don't think that's an upgrade over what they have.
Oof.
In terms of physical ability, it might.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they have different skills, but
Yeah, the Lions are down bad, man. They just have no talent anywhere. They have
They
like
probably
a
won the
couple of
first game,
emerging
though.
players, but about it.
Probably won the first game though.
It's so fitting it's against the Vikings too. God. If it weren't for the Atlanta Falcons, the Minnesota Vikings would have to be the most disappointing NFL franchise.
Yeah, I
um,
guess so.
anyway, guys, do you want to talk about Georgia Tech, or are we just avoiding the?
Oh, sure.
Well,
Yeah, we're
as
avoiding
of
the inevitable as long
recording-
as possible.
So their FPI defensive rank was 100 this past year. That's out of all FBS schools. That's not
Yeesh.
good. They've
I
never
don't know
ranked
what
higher.
happened to our secondary the last couple of years. Like, first year they were solid. Second year they were starting to show flashes, and then like they just fall off.
Yeah, they
What
just
happened?
I don't know, it looks like they just
Maybe-
blow coverages every game, like multiple times a game. They're letting
Or,
guys
like,
scream
guys
wide
get
open.
stuffed up on a play action.
No, I mean, not just falling for play action stuff, but I mean, the secondary, yeah, I would think for a defensively oriented staff, and, Jeff Collins is the head coach, right? He's, he comes from a defensive background, but he's got a lot on his plate in terms of managing the game, looking at the offense and the defense. So understandably, it's not necessarily his defense, but you would think, especially considering his kind of specialty is defense and how they recruit on defense, you would expect something, I don't know, not catastrophic, which it's pretty catastrophic.
I mean, didn't they say the same thing about Richard Smith?
I don't know, honestly.
But okay, so maybe Collins is going to be. I was like, well, I don't get it. Is he going to be the CEO, head coach, where he just finds two really good coordinators, and his job is just to bring in talent and game manage, or is he going to try to be like Paul Johnson except on defense?
Ooh, I don't think he's. I mean, he could prove a lot of people wrong, but I'm not sure that he's the kind of cerebral head coach you would expect from like a Paul Johnson. I don't think he's all that good at managing the game. I mean, what was that one game we had this year where they like blew 2 timeouts on one play because they couldn't figure out what the play call was or something like
Was that
that?
against Clemson?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't remember exactly what game it was, but I distinctly remember him just like dumping timeouts for no reason or whatever. So I don't know if he'll ever be like a John Harbaugh, right? Like a CEO kind of making decisions or whatever. But maybe he could be like he seems to be pretty good at recruiting, at least relative to Tech's average recruiting. So
Right.
perhaps the coordinator route is the correct one. Unfortunately, that's just going to mean, the moment you have a good season from an OC or a DC here, they're gone. Which is probably kind of where college is going. I mean, for God's sake, Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame for LSU, and it's stuff like that is happening this year. So I
Lincoln
don't
Riley
think,
left for USC. Brett Venables left for Oklahoma.
yeah,
Mario
it's crazy.
Cristobal is probably gonna go to Miami.
That's already confirmed.
Yeah, so
Oh,
like
yeah.
Yeah.
it's just like, and then you've got the transfer portal too. There's like an
Ooh,
emerging free agency almost in college to a degree, in both the
we really
coaching and
just
the.
lost our best running back and the best athlete we've ever had.
Oof.
I was going to mention that it looks really bad when one of the best recruits in the history of the program transfers a couple of years later
Yeah,
because reportedly because he couldn't stand losing this much.
oh, really?
Can't
Yeah.
blame him.
Well, I think he also wanted to boost his draft stock, and it doesn't look good
Yeah.
when you're on a team that wins 3 games every year.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a pretty big L for the program when you lose Gibbs. It's just, I don't know,
if he goes
it's
to Bama, at least then he can kick UGA's ass every other game, or every other SEC championship.
one could hope. Yeah, it's a really unfortunate loss, and then we lost Jordan Yates as well, who
He graduated.
he graduated well,
As a grad transfer, but
grad transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I guess that's another topic is like the quarterback situation too, because now, I mean, the one like bright spot on the offense this year was Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's gone. So, what is the future of this offense look like? Because I don't know, personally, year one when I saw whatever Dave Patnode was trotting out there in 2019, it was like
Yeah.
I guess what I expected from that offense was, understandably, you're switching over from the flex bone, so it's going to be a rough transition. There's all the media articles about how monumental a task it is, and
Sheer chaos and unpredictability. That's what I expect.
yeah, whatever about that. But certainly you've got an offensive line problem, and you still do, frankly. But back then it was even worse. So you had a bunch of transitioning athletes to different roles, and the subtleties of their positions change when you're in a spread or a pro style offense. And so, I mean, the transition was going to be rough, but I kind of expected them to, I guess, make the job a little easier on the quarterback, like maybe run some more screens, more play action, kind of just proven things that can help the quarterback out. And Dave Patno just kind of came out and just ran it up the middle, ran zone read a lot. And the times that you looked like you were dropping back to pass, it was hard to tell what was even going on because, there's immediate pressure on the quarterback. So hard to tell what the passing game was. But, now we've got Sims, and, Sims is an interesting kind of, potential, I would say, at quarterback because he's definitely got, I think, a pretty high ceiling. But the problem is, the program has not developed him at all in the past 2 years. He's functionally the same quarterback that began in 2020
I
first
was about
game.
to mention that he makes the same mistakes. I feel like he throws an interception on the first drive every game, and it's
Okay,
like
so
for
I
the
went to the
same reason.
Virginia game this year, and I swear, he threw 2 interceptions the exact same way. One of them was called out for roughing the passer.
Hmm. And it seems to me like when I've seen Sims play, it's like what I would expect to kind of progress for Sims forward, at least the easiest, would be kind of reading the defense, understanding pre and post snap. As you get older, as you mature in an offense, you would expect that to get a little bit better. And like you guys said, he just is, he's throwing multiple turnover worthy throws every single game, and it doesn't seem like he's correcting them. And furthermore, it doesn't seem like the offense is really designed around his strengths and kind of covering up his weaknesses. And there's definitely, there's some maturation for Sims to do. There's also some, again, I still feel like the offense isn't doing him any favors. It's, they just go out there and seem totally disorganized almost every snap. And by some miracle, this offense actually manages like positive EPA per rush, but most of that is through quarterback scrambling and Jahmyr Gibbs after contact. But
Okay,
the pass
so
game,
here's the thing. So looking back on it, if Atnode had his moments, he had a few moments of brilliance. The Virginia games both years, and then probably the Louisville game the year before. But now, if you look back, it really feels like he just ran pro style for pro style's sake. I mean, you got a quarterback in Jeff Sims who probably has Lamar Jackson upside. Probably.
He's like perhaps that kind of style of quarterback, certainly.
That's a bit lofty, but sure. We get what you're saying.
I mean, if you got that kind of quarterback, you have guys that run the option. Run some option. Don't just run zone read. Run some speed. Run some triples. Run some.
I think also the passing concepts are super bland. I mean, I can't even remember the time like he threw a dig route, right? Like it's a lot of screens. They barely. I don't even think they run mesh, which is like the college football 101. That's what you run.
Yeah,
mesh.
It's like
they don't run like anything else other than like these go routes or deep seam routes.
And a lot of, and I wonder, a lot of college quarterbacks, especially when they're young, kind of struggle to read the defense, especially when you're going up against like Clemson. They do a lot of rotating their safeties and everything. It's the confusing defense to play. Georgia certainly, but it's a hallmark of like good quarterbacks, especially with like NFL upside, when they start attacking the middle of the field. And the question is like, is it the offense doesn't produce that because Jeff Sims that's never going to be his game? He's always going to be more of a perimeter thrower or a deep thrower, or is it because they just don't like they're not interested in running those routes there? They're not interested in designing the offense to attack the middle of the field. And either way, I think it's worth finding out. And like Daniel said, it's just they often don't like the passing concepts are almost hard to determine sometimes. Like occasionally it's like, oh wow, we threw a slant for once. That's progress.
We threw an RPO for once.
Oh my god, an RPO. That's a
Speaking of which, I think Chip Long, hopefully we're going to see a lot of that from him.
That feels like a super uninspired hire.
Yeah, the Chip Long hire, it's it seems like he's a guy who's going to pass a little bit more, right? So he's like more of a pass-oriented guy, whether that's through maybe the RPO game where you get a lot of pull reads in college as linebackers bite, or maybe it's just you actually are looking to pass earlier on early downs, which I think we should have been doing from the beginning, especially using play action, which I mean it's been a proven cheat code even at the NFL level that play action makes your offense better, and we do not run enough of it, regardless of whatever concept you're using. But maybe there's more of that, but it doesn't look like Chip Long has had a really prestigious history of making a lot out of what he's had. So it seems like kind of I don't want to say a lateral move. It's hard to tell, but it definitely, as you said, uninspired.
He was apparently a pretty good assistant at Notre Dame. Apparently, he won a Broyles Award, which is given to the best assistant coach.
Yeah,
I thought he was the finalist for that. I thought he didn't win it. Maybe I got Tulane. He was he coached. He was the offensive coordinator for Tulane this past year. Tulane actually.
They gave Oklahoma a run for their money, and then they just fell off.
Hold on, let me get it. Give me like 5 seconds. Okay, Tulane was actually worse in offensive efficiency than Georgia Tech was this past year.
Oof.
Well, obviously, they have a different. This is by ESPN's FPI. I don't have it's just easy to pull up. They have a different roster and all that stuff, right? But certain caveats apply. But still, like going from the 81st ranked offense to the 91st ranked offense, which is what Georgia Tech and Tulane were respectively, is not really something to get excited about, which is, again, why I said uninspired.
Yeah, and it's possible that, Jeff Sims could very well be the best quarterback he's worked with in years. So when you get the quarterback and you can get something out of the quarterback, it always makes everybody look better. How many...
Ian Book.
But Ian Book was kind of garbage, though. He got
fine.
carried. He was carried by he was mostly carried by his defense. I watched a little bit of Ian Book last year. It was, I don't know, maybe from a pro perspective, he was a fine college quarterback, but, at least but I think Jeff Sims can definitely have a higher upside than an Ian Book, right? At least,
Oh no, obviously. I'm
based
just
on
saying
his.
like Ian
Like I
Book was like a
said, I
confident
think he has
quarterback.
Lamar Jackson upside.
Something
You know,
I
he
really
can
think he has Lamar
he can
Jackson.
be like the true dual threat. You know, he's a dynamic athlete on the ground. He has a good enough arm. It's just I do hope that maybe Chip Long also adds value as a quarterback coach, kind of working on Sims mechanics and progressing him and developing Sims and that alone. If you get a quarterback, I mean, how many teams have we seen over the years that have been, especially in like the NFL, but also college, that have been elevated by the quarterback play, where they're, a roster that should go like 3-13 or something, but they end up 500 because of the quarterback play. So if you just improve the quarterback, it can do wonders for your offense. The question is, will that improve, and will they kind of structure the offense around Sim's strengths, and not just line up on 2nd and 12 and run like a pitch play or something? Ugh.
Chase, allow me to pour water on that. Chip Long has never been a quarterback coach in his career.
He was a
It's
tight
actually,
end coach.
yeah, he's more of a tight ends guy, which could be
Oh, really?
better in a different angle, right? We rarely ran 12 personnel, which is one
Hmm.
running back, two tight ends. It was probably just because we didn't have two good tight ends. Um,
We didn't
but I'd
have.
like to see that more, like you said, mix in play action with that. Like they're like it was almost like Patenode was so set on we're gonna run this like super spread offense, like super spread
We ran pro
formations.
style for the
Four,
sake of pro style.
yeah, four wide
Swear.
receivers. I was like, you could run like some more condensed formations. You can run 12
D
personnel and
backs.
like yeah, you don't have to do all your running plays out of the shotgun with four wide receivers in.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like they had much of an identity. They would just kind of line up, spread them out, run Jahmyr Gibbs up the middle, and if that worked, it worked fine against some ACC competition. But once that was taken away by better defenses, the offense just didn't have an answer. It didn't have like
And
a
I think
secondary
like
option.
and you mentioned earlier, like the cerebral part of Jeff Sims has to get better at. Like he's not good at getting past the first read. When he sees a stack box, he still calls the run play in, and maybe he doesn't
Mm.
have the power to check to a pass play, but like yeah, he's just got to get better up in his head, and you really didn't see much of that over 2 years. I mean, he was hurt this year for for some of it, but still, he's been in the league for 2 years. You'd expect more out of him.
I'm gonna reserve judgment until the spring game, but I do want to see what kind of offense Chip Long brings. So I wanna wait for the spring game to see, and also, well, we got Jeff Sims, we lost Jordan Yates, we still have this freshman Shaden Peary, we got another freshman coming in this recruiting class. I'd like to say we also have some reinforcements coming in on the offensive line, but we lost Devin Cochran, and I think we're probably going to lose Ryan Johnson and Mikey Minihan too.
And
What the hell are we going to do?
what's the other guy's
Oh,
name?
also, Wanye Thomas declared for the draft, along with Kyrick McGowan, the wide receiver.
I didn't think either would come back anyway. I mean, maybe McGowan, but
And I think Jordan Mason's graduating. But we still have some interesting pieces. Somehow Jemias Griffin has been silent, so hopefully that means he's staying. Dante Smith, it looks like he's sticking around, and Dante Smith is a playmaker. He's a fast guy.
I think he was
he
rated by
wouldn't play
PFF as like one of the
mistakes.
top pass catching running backs, like receiving backs.
And
In terms of like
he
receiving.
makes plays in space.
That's what I'm saying. Like his receiving, he had like the best college. He had one of the top receiving grades for running backs in college football.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to see, and honestly I wish they'd seen it with Gibbs, let him out, let him run some routes.
Yeah, like the Cordell Patterson
Yeah.
put him out. Of course, I don't think anybody's like that kind of a Swiss Army knife on Georgia Tech, but another player I'd like to see more of and kind of develop a little bit more, who isn't that far away, I think, is Malachi Carter. Um,
Isn't he graduating?
is
Yeah,
he
I thought he was a
graduating?
senior.
Damn.
He's been there for like 80 years.
I was hoping he would come back. Or I was
Yeah,
hoping he
he
was
started
available for at least one
2018.
more season.
He might be, but I don't think he would come back.
He
I'd
played
have to
in
check.
2018.
Oh, he's a junior. He could come back.
He's a
Yeah, I
crazy,
was hoping
fast
I was hoping
player.
that he would come back because I think just having at least kind of a veteran presence there, I think he can be a little bit better and be kind of something in the receiving game, but it's just hard.
Okay, counterpoint. Adonicus Sanders.
Yeah, he's as long as you can develop something there, like I think there's some talent in the receiving core. Certainly, it's just hard when it's hard to evaluate honestly when you know you can't if it's not the passing play breaking down from pressure, it's in an accurate Sims pass or something like that. It's hard to kind of evaluate the system, at
I
least from the
think
receiving
Adonicus
perspective.
Sanders is going to be the number one next year, and Nate McCollum is going to be the slot gadget deep threat guy.
Yeah, I think they like Nate McCollum. They've recruited a ton of wide receivers in the past couple of years, but you just haven't seen a lot of it. And maybe they're still developing, but I don't know who the wide receivers coach is. Double check.
Terry Dixon was
Oh, that's right,
Florida. I think Florida. Yeah, I think it was Florida.
That sounds right.
Yeah, if Sanders can become kind of like a threat who gets open frequently in particular, as long as you get open receivers somehow, whether it's through scheme or winning routes, it's definitely makes the quarterback's job easier. You can hit open throws even if you're inaccurate. So, that's something.
I want to see how they use Avery Boyd too. Look, one of my favorite throws from Jeff Sims was like this last couple of years was his back shoulder fade. I love that throw. If they can get Avery Boyd and turn him into a viable red zone target, He's gonna have some fun. Jeff says.
Yeah, I think there's enough talent, at least in the skill positions, already on the roster to make a functional offense, right? The question, especially in terms of scheme, is going to be that line, and like you guys mentioned, losing the talent that we do have. We getting some grad transfer talent, but the offensive line has been as it would expect it to be. It's been a hard transition, and it's been slow, but
you struggled a lot with
that.
Yeah.
You can scheme around that even with one of the better assistant coaches in the league, like one of the best offensive line coaches in the NCAA.
You would think they would,
but
they
scheme around a shitty offensive line.
They ran a lot of like inside zone run concepts, and the line looked very confused. They're like, who do I block on the running?
Yeah,
They ran outside zone a bit, and it worked.
A little bit. I think Jeff Sims. I don't have it. I'm trying to look up his time to throw, but it has to be like 5 seconds. I mean, he held on.
Yeah, he holds the ball way too long, and really, there's not really any kind of quick game in this offense either, and a lot of that is definitely not going to be Sims style. It's definitely not, that requires kind of, good slot receiver, good tight end as well, kind of focusing more time on the shorter routes and more of the anticipation throws. It's not that I don't think Sims could get there. It's just that's definitely never going to be his strength. He's definitely more of a downfield passer when he does. Really, it might just be the case that if he can fix his mechanics a little bit, speed up that time to throw, he can hit those deeper shots. And God, this offense desperately needs more play action, man. Like
they need more play action. They could do more boot plays, more like half field reads, make it easier for him. Get him out of the pocket.
I wanted to see more boots. That when Dave Patino was calling those against FSU, and I think also Louisville. Oh my God, they were working.
Well, they didn't always work, but they at least didn't always result in negative plays.
Yeah, you have the ideal boot action quarterback too. I mean, a guy who's always a threat to run and legitimately make people miss and bowl people over when he hits people. I mean, you also have, again, as Daniel said, with the half field read concepts, you can, a lot of boot action concepts are kind of by necessity half field reads. You can make a screen.
But high-low reads too.
Yeah, and you can have a screen game off that.
Rarely ran high-low reads too.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot. It could just simply be, and this might be the case, that it might be an addition by subtraction thing, losing Patino. I was just never a fan of how he operate his offense, and I don't think they did. In terms of like sequencing as well, like there was so many like second and long runs, which it felt like, especially the first 2 years in particular, but still this year, it's like first down, you would try something, you would have, and I think they've gotten, I would have to see their splits, I'm not sure, but intuitively it seemed like they had more of an idea of what to do on first down. But the moment they got to second down, a lot of times first down was a negative play or an incompletion or something like that.
Sack, yeah.
A sack, yeah. And then second, it's like 2nd and 10, 2nd and 12, and you're running inside zone up the middle, you're doing a pitch play.
If you're running inside zone up the middle on 2nd and 15, just punt it on second down. Okay?
It's like it's
just punt it.
It's just dumping EPA on early downs. It just does not make sense. And maybe the occasional draw play.
Yeah,
right?
Like there's this weird, like very, very delayed draw play that I saw them run against Virginia, and my God, was it effective.
Yeah, when you run the draw like after, almost games worth of film where you're either passing this long concept on second and long, or you're going to just run a basic zone concept. Eventually teams are going to soften up and kind of prepare for the pass or prepare for a certain thing, and you can hit them with that, like the draw play. But I mean, really, like 2nd and 15, for instance, is a passing down, and it's hard to. I mean, coaches know that too, so it is going to be harder. But that's where the lack of quick game, that's where the lack of this, like, if any semblance of a screen game worth a damn. There's just so many things. Play action in general, 12 personnel would be nice as well. There's options to, and it's definitely, I don't know if I expect them to be good at any of them, but it was clear from what I saw that they weren't particularly good at the normal offense anyway, so might as well try.
I wanted to see us run like the Greg Roman offense with Lamar Jackson, or like what Chip Kelly did when he had Marcus Mariota. I would have loved that.
Like Chase was saying, I don't think the offensive line could support that. I have here the pass rate on first down this season was 46%. You'd like to see that be like 56%, right?
I'd like to see it higher, definitely.
Against UGA, it was 33% pass rate on first down.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and that really that makes no sense either, because UGA, like, Georgia is a team that literally builds their defense around stopping the run. Like, that is Kirby Smart's MO. Everything else comes from that. And you're just running into the teeth of their defense on early downs. And so are you surprised when Jordan Yates is, like, scrambling immediately on third down? I don't know.
I didn't actually get to watch that game. I was driving back from Virginia, but I listened to a good bit of it on the radio, and yeah.
Oh, Anuj, you're lucky. Their passing EPA allowed was 0.87. EPA play.
Oh my
EPA
God.
Play. Again,
Jesus Christ.
MVP Aaron Rodgers last year was 0.36.
Yeah, even outlier games on EPA, like 0.6 or something like that, is
0.87 is insane.
0.87 is just ridiculous. Like that.
That's not total EPA. That's per play.
Yeah, that's just every explosive play. Like every play that was a pass was explosive, essentially. Like we turned their offense into the Chiefs' offense.
Pressure rate.
I mean, when was the last time we really got a pass rush outside of the UNC game?
Well, their pressure is 5%
Oof.
against UGA.
Yeah, they'll do
There
it.
you go.
On the season was just 22. Still not good either.
It's like, I swear, Jordan Dominic is a really good line. He's a really good defensive end.
I kind of like their edge rushers. Yeah.
He was our best defensive end, and it wasn't even close.
If I'm
Jared
from
Ivey
what I
has
saw,
some things, and Kyle Kennard did some things, and I'm sure, like, with time they're going to become, like, big-time players, but they can't do it alone.
yeah, I mean the pass rush isn't great, but it's not a complete dumpster fire either. And for the first time in a while, I think this team has actually trended towards stopping the run a little bit better. The problem is, better than like the Ted Roof.
Awesome. Wes Jackson
like the
awesome.
Ted Roof defense, where they just ran for 10 a pop basically every play, because whatever. But
Wes Jackson and Charlie Thomas are good.
Wes Jackson and Charlie Thomas were awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
Can't say
but
anything else.
none of that matters if your passing defense is that garbage.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Derek Allen like basically didn't play the second half of the season. Big disappointment. Uh,
Did they play Miles Brooks at all? Cause
he played a
I
little, but
I was kind
not
of
a
hyped
lot.
for him. Huh?
Bryce Willing was hurt for the first half of the season, then he wasn't good in the second half. He got picked on a lot. I can't remember the game. It was
Probably
Virginia
Miami.
Tech or something. He allowed like 6 catches and like 3 touchdowns. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
rough.
gotta say, in 2019, like I thought he was gonna be like a mid-round pick corner, and I'm sure he can be. Like he probably will be like a mid-late round corner. Like were those man coverage calls or were those zone coverage calls? Because I still don't know why we're playing zone coverage when at least like the way we recruited, like we have guys that can play man. Like Brace Willing can play man, Zamari Walton can play man, and they're pretty damn good at it.
Well, whatever. I don't know if that might be a good point too, because if we run, and I don't look at our splits or anything, but if we're running a lot of zone, right, that could explain, and we recruit man corners who are better in man. I mean, you can't play man all the time at any level; it just isn't feasible.
Right.
But it could the weakness in zone coverage is probably helps explain why this team busts coverage like multiple times a game.
I mean, at least play man like 50 or 60% of the time. Like, if you want to play cover one hole, play cover one hole. If you want to play cover two man under on third down, play two man under on third down. For the love of God, don't stop playing like freaking like cover two, cover three, or cover four.
I think that's also because I know Jeff Collins did a lot of that kind of coverage at Florida and some at Temple, but so he might just be more familiar with because when you have like Florida caliber athletes, you definitely want to sprinkle in more zone because college quarterbacks in particular, unless you're kind of a 3-4 year starter, a lot of them struggle to process some of the more complicated zone coverage calls.
Unless your name
So,
is Trevor Lawrence.
or I mean, God, Bryce Young, for instance. My God, that game was ridiculous. By the way, I think that guy, I think he like single-handedly won the Heisman just dad dicking Georgia's defense. That was truly impressive.
I don't know. I
anyway,
thought Kenny Pickett was going to give him a run for his money.
yeah, I think it'll be Bryce Young. He'll look great in a Texans uniform. Anyway,
Oh God.
anything
God,
else you guys
I
wanna
feel so bad.
wanna cover before we wrap up here? I mean, we've covered a lot of the lowlights. Any good things to look forward to in the future? Any positives?
So I'm gonna go ahead and air my optimism right now. Chip Long, for the love of God, please do not fit a square peg into a round hole. If you got some guys here, you got a power running back, you got a guy that makes plays in space, you got a really well-rounded receiver, you got a quarterback that can truly be a dual threat and has a cannon of an arm. You obviously got a schemer on your offensive line, but there's talent here. So please, for the love of God, do not jam a square peg into a round hole. Do not run pro style for pro style's sake. If you think you can get the most out of these guys by running the Greg Roman or the Chip Kelly spread, do it. If you think you can get the most out of these guys by running something like a Mike Leach or Cliff Kingsbury air raid, do it. But for the love of God, like, do not jam a square peg in a round hole. And as for the defense, please find a way to get more pressure than just relying on the ends to do everything for you. Please. Pretty please with a cherry on top. But I am looking forward to seeing what they do in spring practice. However, I will say I think this is the litmus test year for Jeff Collins. I think this is the year he has to prove he's the guy. Otherwise, if he's not gone, he's gone. He's either gone this year or the next if he doesn't prove that he's the guy. But I'm going to be stubborn and say that I think he can do it just based on his recruiting prowess as long as he can, tamp down on the execution and stuff, especially in the secondary.
I guess like I'll go like one pessimism point, I guess, and one optimistic point. My pessimism is probably just around Jeff Collins in general. I We'll see if he kind of adapts how he's, and he obviously is at Tech. He's at a disadvantage in a number of ways, whether it's support from the institute, whether it's recruiting. It's a lot harder to recruit here than, when you have Clemson and UGA and Florida and everybody breathing down your neck for recruits. So, but at the same time, like, the expectations aren't that high for Georgia Tech. I mean, this team should be making bowl games at least. I mean, that was the kind of the promise leaving Paul Johnson, right? Where everyone was like, we can do better than Paul Johnson. Well, you've unfortunately flipped the coin, and it was tails. So, I personally don't have so far, Jeff Collins seems like he's more talk than actual progress and on the field product. The whole money down stuff, and this team is abysmal on third down. So,
it was almost condescending when he came on. He's like, if you don't see, I forget the exact quote, you guys can correct me, but it was, if you don't see the progress, you're not looking for it. Is it something like that?
Really?
And it's
I didn't know he said that.
He said something like that after maybe the Notre Dame game or before the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, apparently progress is getting blown out 55-0. That's
yeah, it's like you the last two games you got blown out 100-0. Like, it got worse as the season went on.
Damn.
Yeah, so I mean, my pessimism is around Jeff Collins. I've seen, frankly, nothing that he adds as a coach aside from recruiting, and this is not the kind of program that can just recruit 5 stars and bowl people over and have bad coaching. Like, the coaching has to be a value add position, and I've seen no evidence that Collins has done so far that leads me to think he will. It's possible I'm wrong, but I think the most probable outcome is he gets fired next year. So the one source of optimism for me, I guess, or kind of talking about some optimistic points, would be Jeff Sims. If you can develop him a little bit, he can. I do believe in his upside, get a little bit more accurate. Kind of incorporate press all the easy buttons on the offense. And, there's a reasonable offense to be made there, at least a college average offense, if not better, with just Jeff Sims improving. So as long as the coaching staff can make something of Sims, the offense by default can get better. And then maybe on defense, you do have, defense is kind of unstable year to year. Some years it's bad, some years it's good. The trend for Georgia Tech has been entirely negative. Like, it regressed from 2019 even, where it was looking like it was going in the right direction, but it's possible it regresses positively. And maybe, the defense isn't the, tire fire it was this year. So, I think this team can, the talent, there's enough talent here to, when you change your approach offensively, develop what's there, this team can certainly make a bowl game, but, you've got to have more than just platitudes about, we're going to play with juice and toughness and all that stuff, because you're playing. Unfortunately, this team is a very dumb team right now. Like, there's no like, Paul Johnson's teams by comparison were very intelligent. Like, Paul Johnson knew what he was doing. He did, very forward-thinking things. Ironically, with his dinosaur offense, like early down passing, play action, going for fourth downs, big balls, Paul, and that kind of stuff. And, Paul Johnson turned 2-star athletes essentially into 2 Orange Bowl appearances. So you can certainly at least make a 6-6 bowl, right?
Get to the Fenway Bowl. All right. Thanks for, it's like the worst one. Thanks for coming on, guys. In this moratorium.
I appreciate the opportunity. I enjoy talking to you guys, so anytime.
I wouldn't call it a moratorium so much as call it a post-mortem. Next year it'll probably be a moratorium if you don't show any progress.